Joining us today is LeGrand.
He is a really inspirational story. He's got a new book out, Believe, My Faith and the Tackle That Changed My Life. He is super positive and interesting to talk to. Let's get to know Eric a little bit. You said at the ESPYs that you're going to walk. Has there been any sort of progress there, any small increments of progress where you could feel really encouraged?
Oh yeah, I see it every day with my sitting balance and everything, my more shoulder movement, as you can see. I'm lifting up my arms a little bit, and I'm doing these, muscle tests at the end of 20 sessions, and that they see muscle contractions all the way down to my toes. They're not enough for movement yet, but you can see the contractions and the signals getting down, which doctor said would never happen. So I definitely stay motivated from that kind of stuff, and just all the people that reach out to me with all their positive feedback, that keeps me going.
What was the moment like, Eric? What do you remember about the moment?
I remember pretty much everything, laying there on the ground. And it felt like I got the wind knocked out of me. I couldn't move, so I kind of freaked myself out. And I was just laying there. Coach Shannon was telling me to pray, which just freaked me out even more because, you want to hear a little bit more. And he's just telling me, pray, pray, pray. And I was just like, Coach, I can't breathe. And I was kind of freaking myself out. And then got onto the stretcher, caught a gasp of air for a second, tried to give the crowd a thumbs up. Didn't happen. And then I got onto the ambulance. They put the oxygen mask on me. I thought that was going to, make me be able to breathe again, catch that deep breath. And it did it. And I kind of freaked myself out so much that I made myself pass out.
The fear, right? How long were you passed out? Do you know when you came to? What were you thinking?
I came to actually on a Wednesday, and it happened on a Saturday. I really don't remember too much through them because they started feeding me all those drugs and preparing me for the surgery. Just so I was stabilized. So I really don't remember much from that Saturday to that Wednesday.
And so what did Wednesday feel like?
Wednesday, I just woke up and I was basically in a hospital bed. I kind of realized what had happened because I was in and out on everything, but I saw my mom and my girlfriend there, and I just said, I'll be back. And I asked them, will they help me walk again? And from there, it's been a journey ever since.
So when you come to on Wednesday, Eric, you couldn't have been positive, right? As positive as you are and as amazed as everyone is by your positivity, when you get the diagnosis, your thought process ends up being what?
At first, I really didn't know what had happened to me. All the doctors were talking to my mom. And the thing about it was my mom would not let anybody in the room that was negative, which was great, So many people around me were just so positive. So that just made me, jump off like everything's going to be okay. I'll be just fine because everyone was coming in and telling me I was going to be just fine. And that's really all I knew because I really didn't know exactly what had happened to me. I just had an idea.
Your mom wouldn't let anybody in the room who was negative?
Nobody, no doctors or anything. Every time I talked to a doctor, they were smiling and they were just like, everything's going to be just fine. We just have to do the test here, test here. And I was just like, okay then, I guess it's going to be fine.
So you went a month or two without knowing what exactly your predicament was, without anybody telling you?
Yeah, pretty much. I saw it on TV and stuff. They were saying a bunch of stuff in the papers, but I didn't really ask until about a month or two later.
And so what happened then, Eric?
Then, my mom told me what they said, and I was just like, I just got off of beating a ventilator at that time, or that breathing machine that was down in my trachea. I'm like, if I were to beat this and they told me I would be on this for the rest of my life, the sky's the limit. I'm not going to listen to what they say won't happen. I'm just going to keep on grinding and do what I do because they have no idea what kind of determination that I had.
Do you feel like this is your mission, that this is what was meant to happen?
I do. I believe everything in this world happens for a reason, and I believe I was put here, to inspire millions of people, I was never, going to be able to inspire as many people as I have now playing the game of football and with my just attitude. And I believe I was put here, through the grace of God just to help other people out in their situations in life.
Is there any one particular thing, Eric, that you most miss, that you want to be able to do that you can't do?
Oh yeah, to being able to take care of myself, I have to rely on other people now to take care of me, do things for me, feed me, it's kind of hard, but I just got to deal with it. But that's one thing I do miss, being able to take care of myself and doing what I want to do when I want to do it.
It did bother you once though, right? You got more used to it, but at the beginning, that was the hardest part?
Yeah, the hardest part is always asking somebody, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? You kind of feel bad always asking somebody to do something and then it just becomes the norm.
How often do you feel frustration? Because everyone talks about how overwhelmingly positive you are. Are you concealing the frustration or is it not even there?
I really don't conceal really too much frustration. The stuff that I see on a daily basis really keeps me away from that. You know, people that I see in therapy, you know, they're working for the same goal as me, and they're not as fortunate as me. You know, traveling all over the place, being able to sit here and talk to you right now. You know, people are in my situation. Most of them go to therapy and they just go home and they just sit there, and most of them become miserable. That's why I'm like, wow, I have nothing, you know, to look down at. This is, you know, I've been blessed with so many great opportunities. I have, you know, nothing to be frustrated about.
Has there ever been a point where you were bitter, where you were angry, where you were negative, where you were sad?
No, I can never say that there was a point I was ever bitter or negative through this whole situation, you know. Like I said, everything happens for a reason, and I could tell right from the get-go that I was put here to do this because of all the people that reached out to me from the beginning and everything that was just happening, and how my story's been able to take off in my career and everything else that I want to do in this world.
Eric, that seems hard to believe. I'm not saying that you're not telling the truth. It just, what you're saying seems very difficult to believe, because those, I would guess that those would be normal human emotions for someone to feel for at least a moment.
Yeah, you of course you get down because of the situation. You know, you felt bad, but I've never been bitter or negative about it. You know, I could probably count on two hands how many times I've cried through this whole thing. You know, it's not a lot at all. But you know, you just gotta adjust. Well, you know, my whole life was a football and adjusting and handling adversity. Now I've been dealt with that adversity. Now I gotta handle it. I can't, you know, soap up and cry and just sit in the corner. I just gotta deal with it and make the best of it.
What would you point to since the accident, Eric? What would you point to and say, this was my greatest moment of joy? This is the moment that made me happiest?
Probably that, you know, I've had so many different moments, you know, that made me happy, but that ESPYs, I always wanted to be at the ESPYs, you know, giving a speech in front of millions of people, you know, watching on TV, and just being in front of all those athletes, you know, that I look up to and watch on TV. So that was probably one of the greatest moments I've ever had in my entire life, being able to address a crowd like that. And then you can hear a pin drop in the room and them listening and giving me a standing ovation as I came on and off on the stage. So that was one of the greatest moments of my life.
Any athletes come to you and say anything particularly memorable there?
It had to be Juwan Howard. I remember watching his show, you know, back when the Fab Five, when he was talking about we're going to shock the world. And when I saw him with my friend, I was like, Juwan, we're going to shock the world. And he went crazy. And he was like, yeah. And it was probably one of the funniest moments I've ever had.
My father has a question for you, Eric. Go ahead, Papi.
Tell me about the first time you fell in love.
The first time I fell in love, I was probably a senior in high school, and I fell in love with this girl from actually Chicago. She came out to Rutgers, though, and, you know, that was probably my first love. The relationship only lasted about 9 months, though.
What was her name? You want to say hello to her now?
Her name was Kelsey, and hello, Kelsey.
Yeah, you did that reluctantly. We forced you into that. You didn't want to do that. You didn't want to say hello to her.
Hey, that's because, you know, I got my girlfriend now. I don't know how upset she'll be about that.
Thank you for being on with us. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Eric.
All right, thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Papi.
Gracias.